of Covered by Margot, and today's video is going to be about how to make your own really tasteful, clean designed urban cover. I'm making this video because when I did a search on YouTube, I found plenty of tutorials for how to make book covers, but I did not find a single one that showed you how to make a really nice urban cover. Okay. So as you can see, I've made one here, and these are all free elements. These are all things that you can find on your Google Draw, and I'm going to walk you through it. So let me just zoom these away so you can see what I did, okay? All right, I'll walk you through all of this. Okay, so I'm going to start with this image here first. This image I actually got from Unsplash, which I keep telling you is my absolute favorite free design source, because not only are the photographs beautiful, not only are they prolific and there's so many of them, not only that, but diversity, which if you have ever done any kind of graphic design work is a huge issue. If you go to some professional spaces to find models of color or black models to use in your book cover design, it is darn near impossible to find models who actually look like your typical black people. Oftentimes they'll have horrible wigs, they'll be styled poorly, they'll be lit poorly, everything. But I don't know why it is. I'm guessing it's because a lot of the photographers on Unsplash are actually of color themselves. They are the ones who are taking the pictures. Um, so you'll get a lot of high quality imagery of people of color that are free, that are better than the ones that you have to pay $50 to $300 to license, you know? So you bet your butt you know what I'm gonna pick. So this girl here, I'm gonna revert it so you can see what she used to look like. She started out like this, okay? Um, and she's urban, right? She's, black or Latina. And what I did was hold on, I'm gonna redo her coloring if I can. If not, I'll just do it by hand. What I did was number one, went to the format options, and then I recolored her because it looks interesting stylistically. Okay. And I recolored her in blue because blue has a sort of mood to it. It makes you look, uh, remember that there's color theory that, like, depending on the colors that you're using, you're conveying different messaging. So I had it in my head in this fake book cover that this central character is a melancholy girl. She goes through a lot of different, events and dramas in her life that are hard on her. So I thought it would look interesting if I conveyed that by making her blue. Now, another thing you want to do, the other thing that I did, as you can see, because she got smaller, was I cropped this photo. Okay. And I'm going to do that again so you can see how I did it. Okay. I wanted to crop in as close as possible so that I had as much of her without any wasted black background as possible to work with. Okay. Because we already have a black background. That's why I did this. Okay. So there. Now it's just her. And I can make her fill this entire space. And that's important too. You want to make your images as big as possible because you want your consumer to be able to tell what your image is, even in the thumbnail. Because you got to remember, when a person goes to Amazon and they're shopping for a book, they're not seeing this full image that I have here. They're seeing the thumbnail. So that's another little tip I want to give you. You want to make sure that your finished cover looks good in a small size. and that it's and more importantly that it is clear what your subject is and what your genre is, so that a person who wants that genre can be clear, like as soon as they hit your page, bam, okay, it's this type of book, I want that type of book. Okay, so I made her big, and that's why. Now I'm going to show you what I did with this candy part. Now there's two different, I kind of went back and forth on the coloring here because orange bounces off of blue really, really well. And it's also a color that conveys or makes you hungry, conveys like a restaurant feel, which ties into candy. Okay. Or that's why you see oranges in the McDonald's logo and the Burger King logo. But at the same time, you want to think soft candy, like uh, that kind of has a feminine touch to it. So I almost want to make the candy pink. Okay. And you can see that looks good. Right. That still works. It bounces off really, really well and stands out and is legible. And once again, in that thumbnail size. And so you can see this variation looks good as well. The font I used here, let me just show you, is Nunito. Nunito. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it is a default font that is available in Google Draw. But there are more fonts that you can upload that are also outstanding to use in design work. Remember what I said about, a simple serif or a sans serif font. Those tend to look best. Now, this effect that I added here, I added this effect because I think it kind of renders in sort of idea of those twirly candies. You remember when they used to sell those giant lollipops? They're like long ones and they're kind of bumpy. I kind of felt like it gave that sort of similar texture to the title here, to add that sort of bumpiness. And how I did that was by first I colored it here, and then I know I told you don't want to outline, or most of the time I don't like border colors and outline, but this time I think it works. I added this border color, which isn't quite white, but just off white. And then in the border weight, I went to 2 pixels because I want it to stand out a little bit now. But I mean, I could make it smaller too, but you can barely see it there. Have that up at 2, just so you can see that little bumpy effect, that little candy effect. And I added these little dots. That's it. Like, you can have it in a straight line as well. And you can see that actually kind of works as well. But the dots I thought added a little interesting sort of texture that kind of conveys a sense of candy. Okay. So I did that, and I sized the fonts in the way that I mentioned in the first video, where they don't necessarily have to be the same size, but they have to match up in a way where they're both sort of centered and they're both of the ends line up. Okay. Now, as for the author's name, I used one of my favorite fonts, that Oswald. It just looks so professional, in basic white. I believe that I added a little bit of shadow. I'm not certain, but I'm going to go ahead and check so you can see what I'm talking about. I believe I added shadow though. Yeah, I did add shadow to this. I'm just trying to, yeah, here we go. Format options. And you can see I added drop shadow over here. Okay. I'm going to do that a little slower so you can see what I did. All I did was right click on this. Okay. Right click on that. Come down to format options. And this format options pops up. Okay. And you go to the drop shadow option, and then you just check mark or highlight it. And the defaults actually set your text in a way that looks just highlighted enough so it bounces off the page, but is not ostentatious or, ugly, in my opinion. So I did that. All right, close this out. And I did similar for this fake byline here, this tagline that I added. I added a tagline, and I actually um, recommend that you do the same, um, because it also gives you an idea of where the plot in the book is going. It adds just a little bit of interest, So my tagline I added was "Heavenly Body, Devilish Mind." So you know that even though she's blue and she's melancholy, that she probably uses her body to gain things, and that she has a devilish mind, so she's probably really tricky and is manipulating people. So all of that you get from that book cover. So you again, it's both easy and hard, if that makes sense. A lot of thought goes into this, and when I make these, I went through it really quick, but I put a lot of thought into these, and you should too. Always think about what messaging you're conveying, how clean you want it to look. It always has to look clean. It always has to be simple. KISS, keep it simple, stupid, is a you know is a thing that you should follow. um, and I think that this came out really well. So if you want to do your own urban cover, like I said, you don't need very much fancy equipment. You just need a good taste level and the ability to edit yourself, question yourself, let the thing rest for a while. Because as you can see, I let it rest. It started out orange, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to change this color to this fuchsia. And I think actually the fuchsia works a lot better. Okay. So when you're done and you're done editing, let it rest for a bit, and then come back to it, and you may come up with something that looks even better in the final version. Okay. I think I'm done, but I think I may do some more urban designs, and I think I'll go from beginning to end in live, so that you can see my process. And if you want to render your own urban book covers. I hope you enjoyed this. And please, if you do subscribe,